Good morning or good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you're joining us from, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Tarek O'Dali from Business Review, and I will be your host. It is our pleasure to have Camo Software with us today. They'll be presenting this webinar titled Closing the Gap Between R&D and Production with Real-Time Multivariate Process Monitoring. Today's guest speakers are Dr. Geir Rune Flayton, CTO, Camo Software, and Dr. Tobias Merz, the chemical engineer at Lonza AG. I'd like to welcome you to our webinar platform today. This is On24, and you'll notice that this webinar is browser-based. So if you do disconnect for any reason, or if you close the window by mistake, please click on the link that you received via email, and you'll be able to rejoin the session. In order to ask questions, you can send them in at any time via the questions widget. Type them into the box at the top left-hand corner of your screen and then click submit. And we're going to try to allocate some time at the end of the session to address all of the questions and thoughts that you have. If you'd like to click on the green resource list widget, you'll be able to view or download some PDF files that are relevant to this webinar, and go ahead and use the yellow help widget if you need technical assistance. You're also free to move, resize, and maximize any of the windows in front of you to get a better view of the slides. But now that having been said, please allow me to welcome Marie.
Hi everyone, my name is Marie Peterson. I am the Marketing Director of Camo Software. And today I have the pleasure of welcoming two speakers to us. One I have next to me, that's our CTO, Geir Rune Flayton, who's going to be talking about our Camo solutions. But even more pleasure to introduce is Dr. Tobias Merz, who's actually our customers and the leader of the process analytical technology team at Lonza, which has been a contributor to the development of our solutions that we will talk about today. I'm also going to join you again at the end of this session to manage some of the questions. The agenda, very briefly, we're going to get a short introduction from Geir Rune about Camo, and then we'll talk about the challenges of process monitoring and, of course, the solutions. And probably the most time will be spent on how you actually get to that solution itself. So what are the steps towards the solution? We will summarize all of this and leave plenty of time for questions and discussions between Geir Rune and Tobias, but also introduce, obviously, any questions from the audience. So without further ado, I'm going to start with handing over to Geir Rune. Over to you.
Yes, thank you very much, Marie. The first thing I'm going to start out doing is that I'm going to talk a little bit about Camo and give you a background about Camo and what we are doing in Camo. Our main focus is multivariate data analysis, both software and wider solutions. And this is something we have been doing for quite some time. We were founded in mid-80s, 84. And that puts us in the group with the very early starters in this area. So we have a lot of experience with the multivariate data analysis, both software and solutions. And today we have thousands of organizations which are using our products, and they try then to use it to improve their performance and to do analysis of their data. And if we're looking then on the product portfolio we have the data analysis tools, which is Unscrambler. This is the tool which you will be using if you have some data available and you want to do some data analysis. The main focus of Unscrambler is to do multivariate data analysis, and that means that instead of looking on only one parameter at a time, you're looking on the full array of parameters. So if you're running some process data analysis, for example, you will be putting all of the process parameters together, and you will try to analyze them as such. There are also some simple descriptive statistic solutions in the Unscrambler, so you should be able then to cover most of the data analysis needs you might have. One thing which we came or introduced to the market this year is the batch modeling solution. This is a plugin to the Unscrambler, and this helps you to do analysis of batch data. And this is important because if you are running a batch process, you might have some time differences between the different runs, and you need to then ensure that you're able to compare these the different runs across those time differences. And in the batch modeling module, there are some tools for doing this in an efficient manner. For real-time monitoring, using the models, then we have this process pulse tool. And the process pulse tool is really what is behind the presentation we're going to do today about process monitoring. We won't say that much about the tool itself, just mention a little bit of highlights. But the idea then is that if you do data analysis in a Scrambler, you create some model or some relation for your data. You can use this relation or model in the process pulse to do real-time process monitoring to see whether you're on track or not. Also, we have something which is called analytical engines. And this is something which is used in third-party systems where you can, again, execute models which are created in Unscrambler. And our customers are using it typically in instrument software or also some sort of other process monitoring software. And finally, in Carmo, we are doing both support and services. This includes training and consultancy. But it's also other solutions for you. If we look a little bit on how we are spread across the world, we actually have we will claim a fairly good coverage. You see that it's a lot of points on this slide, and that's relating to our different partners. Our offices, they are the ones which are marked by red and green. Green is in Oslo, the head office, where myself and Maria are sitting. And the red ones are sales offices in the US, in the UK, in India, and in Japan. And then the rest of those points on the slide, they are relating to partners. And this is a strategy we are following, that we want to try to get as far reach as possible through our partners. And that includes training partners running courses for us, OEM partners, including the analytical engines in their systems, consulting partners who are helping our customers to do what they should be doing with the data analysis, and also academic partners, which we are doing some research projects together with. Technology partners should not be forgotten. It's a little bit more integrated solutions than we have with our OEM partners. And finally, the resellers, which are providing our products to local customers. The main focus for Carmo is the three industrial areas, which is on the bottom of this slide. You see that we have pharma, which we have a lot of focus on both PAT solutions and also QBD, quality by design. We have industrial in sort of the wider sense, including chemical industries and energy industry. And we have the AFF, as we call it, agricultural, food and feed, where we also have a lot of activity. So we are covering a wide range of industries there. If you think now a little bit, should we call it generic, about what we are trying to do in Carmo, we have typically a challenge where our customer have some raw materials. Those raw materials should be transformed into some kind of final product. In the pharma, it could be things like tablets. In chemical industries, it might be some purified or synthesized chemical compound. And then in the AFF, it might be food products or whatever. But typically, they're starting from some raw materials. They're doing something with these raw materials, and out is coming the final product. During that processing, of course, people, operators, will influence the process of things. There will be environmental influences. There are business drivers, depending on what is the focus area of the different industries. And of course, there are some regulations which is impacting on all of this. And of course, in addition to that, it's the underlying process itself. In order to say something about what is really going on here on the transition from raw materials to final product, we need to try to put in some measurement. Measurements could be localized. It could be to try to capture what is happening in the people, environment, business drivers, or regulation space. But in general, it's about putting numbers to what's actually going on in our process. And if we can measure this, then we can start to think about, okay, maybe we can try to characterize those measurements or try to build some models or relations defining what is actually going on. And ultimately, hopefully, getting to this flexibility, opportunity to have flexibility in the sourcing materials, and at the same time getting to consistent product quality. Because basically what we're doing then is through the measurements, we are characterizing what's going on in our process and doing adjustments accordingly so that our product quality is fixed and satisfying. This is really the generic challenge we are facing. And then I'm going to hand you over to Dr. Tobias Merz. Tobias?
Yes, thank you, Garun, for the introduction and explanation. And I would like to give you some insights in our challenges we would like to addressing in Lonza. And at least everybody records data along the value chain, but I think to gain value out of the data, we thought maybe we have to bend the chain into a cycle and to introduce kind of a life cycle from the R&D, from the process development until commercial scale production, and to learn every time you're running through the cycle and you update your model and gaining more and more process understanding. And I think it is good presentation in the slide of taking value out of the data, making the model, trying to transfer the model from the pilot scale into production, connect all the data out of the production to the DCS system, execute the model and see where your process is currently running, and try to deliver or try to present the information out of the model according the operators or the people that they can use or can do something out of the data, and making reports and overviews over the campaign, and try to start the cycle again and making learnings out of each cycle. And I would like to present how we can integrate, or how we started in Lonza to integrate this philosophy by showing a nice example out of the R&D labs. For example, if you have experiment information, mainly it's sometimes written in the electronic, or not in the electronic, in the manual notebook. And if you have kind of lab automation systems, you can extract your experiment from data from temperature profiles or dosing ramps in the electronic format. Then if you have included some PAT sensors, mainly you have spectra on a file-based system. Then sometimes you take samples out and you get from your LIM system an extract of your data. And to finalize all the different data from the manual written information to the LIMS data, it needs for the first experiment 4 to 5 days to make extraction of the individual data streams, to copy paste in Excel, to align the different timelines. And the question was for us how we can leverage, how we can speed up this process, that we are able to have kind of an online data evaluation tool. So it means the idea was gathering all the different data streams and make a real-time monitoring system available for the lab, but also for the piloting. And we started a project in Lonza to evaluate solutions 2009 to capture the need, to capture the requirements from the lab, from the production, to look where the benefits are, to make a market screening, what are the commercial products available, and defining a strategy how we can implement such a tool for us in Lonza, and at least coming to finding a champion to find the sponsorship for such a project. And then we started for implementation a couple of years ago, and now we are finalizing the project and starting to interface with other data sources for the electronic lab notebook, and also directly capture the data from our lab automation systems and defining a rollout plan for next year. So the concept overall, it's quite easy. So we have a lot of data sources in the lab, for example, a Raman device, near-infrared, middle-infrared. We have data sources coming from our lab automation systems via OPC interface, or we have a process information server from OSI. We have our LIMS system, for example, from Thermo. And we would like to connect all the different data to make models and to be able to run the models online and have some dashboarding and a tool available which enables the online data evaluation to play around with the data, to overlay different trend lines from temperature and turbidity and so on, and to see directly in the first experiment what's happening in your experiment. You store the data on your database, and afterwards you are able to extract the data to make a remodel and move the model back to online, and then execute the model, for example, the next time. Here's some snapshots. How the front end can look like. You have different configurations, for example, or different experiments. Then you can overlay the different sensor data. You can have, for example, trajectory, and you can see from a batch model how to follow the experiment, the model. Then you can directly see which sensor has the highest contribution to the model. You have on the other side spectral data, so it means directly a read-in of multivariate data. And then you can combine all the different sections. You can combine the model output of spectral data with the model output of batch data, and then see it's overlaying or not. So you're able to see in the client system, but also sharing the information on the web base. So how does it fit in our concept overall? We try to align the different data sources at least to 3 data storage platforms. So it means we have all univariate lab sensors and production sensors stored on our Pi server. We have the second database in the middle to store all the multivariate data. It means all PAT sensors, optical and spectroscopic PAT sensors like Raman spectra, near-infrared, middle-infrared, to process pulse. And we store all the context and meta information in the electronic lab notebook. So it means the upper line, it's the raw data feeding in the 3 different databases. And the lower line, they are our toolbox where we are able to model and to make statistical process control charts, or to have PeakSec, Peerless Toolbox, and Unscrambler available to extract the data coming from our databases and model the experiment. On the right-hand side, the ALN, the electronic lab notebook, is linked to different other databases like our internal structure databases. We have procedures and workflows, and also to our design of experiments concept. And it's fitting good together because Process Pulse and Unscrambler and Design Expert, they are aligned with each other, and they can just hand over the design to Unscrambler, collecting the data with Process Pulse, and evaluate the design of experiment directly on the multivariate way, and moving the model or the output back directly for the next time you can see where your experiment is running in your design space. A little bit more complicated, or looking more in detail, the flow diagram in Process Pulse. So you have 3 sections. At least the lower section, it's the data source section. So it means putting all the different data sources together. The second, in the middle section, is to making configurations. So selecting the right data sources coming from our OSI server, Process Pulse server, or electronic lab notebook. And on the upper layer, it's how you present the data. So it means you can present your data on the client base. You can present the data on the web dashboard. You have the possibility of manual data entry or setting alarms and defining outputs. So in the middle section, you define what is what you would like to present, like if it's just the raw data, or making complex models by batch modeling, or all the different Unscrambler models are possible to run directly online. And if you have really complex data structure, you can configure, and you can group some configurations at least on one single data source, and presenting the output. What is the difference in applying this concept in production? So we have plenty of spectrometers in our production plants, and they are currently running on a standalone system, executing the model and predicting, for example, the output to delta V, to our DCS system, to control the plant, and all the different lab or the different process variables will be stored on our site Pi server. On the other hand, the raw data from the spectrometer will be stored on a near store server. But it means if you would like to have a more complex data evaluation and combine your spectral information with the information from the production plant, so it's quite time-consuming, because you have to look for each spectra, what is the current status in the production plant, and selecting the temperature and the filling and the pH, and then moving to a data evaluation platform. And the idea was implementing Process Pulse, taking the spectra into Process Pulse database, connecting the spectra with the information coming from the Pi server. Then you can also include the QC data, LIMS results, for example, and providing all the data in one table to a Process Pulse client. So you can just click here your time frame you're selecting, and then you have all the spectral data with all the temperature and pressure and all the process variables together on one sheet. So it makes the data evaluation much more easier. Besides the implementation in the production, there are different other possibilities for implementing Process Pulse. So we're trying first in the lab to speeding up at least our process development phase, and then in the piloting, gathering all the data and combining the model, or trying to transfer the model from our learnings in the R&D phase to the piloting, and then later on to commercial scale production. But also in the QC labs, for example, to investigate complex raw materials, it's quite challenging to directly see the difference between the raw materials and batch outputs, for example. And then we can try to, or we can capture the raw material analytics, even if it's spectral data or univariate data within the combination of process data. So it means from the beginning of R&D phase until the production. So there's many options and applications where we think Process Pulse can be a valuable tool. So I would like to hand over to Gairun.
Yeah, thank you for that, Tobias. So just expanding on what Tobias said then about this slide here, that what we have tried to do with this Process Pulse solution is that we try to create a solution which is sort of scalable. And that means that if you're starting from the one sensor in one lab and all the way up to multiple sensor in maybe multiple product lines or even multiple sites, it is the same system which can just grow, because this is like it's like a server client system, so it's just adding more hardware to it, and it should be then able to handle the challenges you throw at it. And I also think that what Tobias said about taking the learnings from R&D into the processes, I think this is really a key one, because that's always a challenge, that you are working on your product in the R&D, maybe even defining some control strategies which are working in R&D and maybe even in the pilot, but then you need some way of implementing that in the full-scale production. And using Process Pulse in the different steps then the interfacing with the control strategy, being it alarms and notifications or specific models, will be the same throughout. So it makes it very feasible to take that or do that journey. So we think that is important. Another thing which I just want to point back to, which Tobias talked about earlier, is this opportunity to sort of pull in data from different areas or different databases and combine them, because that is of course what you want to do. And in this slide here, the sort of enterprise or the operations are separated from the QC lab. But of course, if you are taking an IPC sample, in process control sample, you send it to your lab and you're getting your results, then you are interested in ensuring that those results are stored and even maybe used with the data you are collecting from the process itself or from the operations itself, and the ability to do that is really important, because you want to get away from the situation where you have the overhead of different databases, or maybe in the worst case different spreadsheets, which you need to combine and bring together just to ensure that you have all of the data in the same place. So we think that is important. And if I take the liberty then to point out to something we think are advantages with the solutions, or with bringing everything into a solution, or having a process monitoring system in itself. The first one, which is standing out, is this: it's the data integrity. Because if you have this process monitoring system, and this process monitoring system is able to both capture the data and store the data in a meaningful way, then of course you're getting all of it into the same system, into the same database. And as you are bringing the data in, then you should also ensure that the data are sort of aligned, that you can have, okay, you have your process data, and then you have the lab data, and they need to fit at the same time point, so to speak. So it's not only about having a lot of data in the same database, but it's about having all of the data in the same database in a structured manner. And of course, a challenge which we often see is this thing Tobias was pointing to, that they have a lot of spectral instruments in their production area, and then they need a way of storing those spectral data in a single place. And with the Process Pulse and the database there, it's really adapted or made in order to give a good holding space for the spectral data. What we were thinking when we did this process monitoring system or Process Pulse was that it should be a PAT system, so to speak, fitting into the rest of the infrastructure on pretty much any site as we see it. The next thing, which is related with the data integrity, of course, is this 21 CFR Part 11 compliance, because this is, of course, most important for those industries which are regulated by the regulatory bodies adhering to this. But looking on the list of attendees to this chat, it looks like a lot of you are probably subject to this, and this is of course then a key solution or a key parameter for your solution to have that sort of compliance. The next point there, user access control, it's also hugely important because you will have experts like Tobias who will be able to do magic with the data through modeling systems using different modeling tools and creating models which are in a good way describing the relations between your data and what's actually happening in the process. And those experts, they need to have full access to be able to set up configurations and ensure that alarms and everything are tuned to the level they need to be. But then the operators or the lab technicians, what they need is that they need access to the system so they can execute models, execute configurations, and in that manner ensure that data are collected in the right manner. But of course, you don't want them to have access to modification of models or be able to do any major changes because that might upset your system. And this is solved in the protocols by having 3 user levels and then an IT admin level on top of that, setting up the system and controlling the system. The next point there, model lifecycle management, that's something which is hugely important, and you will see that, or those of you who are working with multivariate models or data science in general, you will know that, okay, you create a model, but then something is changing. Maybe there is a raw material vendor changing, maybe there is a part changing in your vessel in the process, whatever it is, but it means that your model then needs to be, if not modified, at least verified that it's still working. And through this protocol system, we are providing a model database, and through that model database, we are getting revision control. Revision control in the sense that if I change a model, it will be logged in the audit trail that it is changed, what the change is, and all my colleagues and peers, they can then see what has happened to that model. And we can also then ensure that the models are only accessed by those people who have the right user credentials. An important thing here is also this opportunity to approve models, because you could have, depending on how strict your system is or your operation is, you can have the need for actually having a peer review of models. And in that sense, you can have this thing which we call approved models. So you upload your model and you have revision control, but if I then do a change to my model, there needs to be a colleague or a peer who review my change and approve it. So I get sort of a second opinion or a sign-off on that model, which can also be key depending on your operation, as I said. Real-time monitoring, that's something which is, of course, given when we are doing process monitoring, but the real opportunities here, or the business benefits, is relating very much to early detections. And if we are getting a true picture of what's actually going on your process, very often then we will be able to early on see that things are really not right. There are things which are starting to move in unexpected ways here. And if we are able to make those early detections, then hopefully, if not the first time, at least the second time, we are able to take some corrective action to sort of save the batch or bring the process back in control. And that is a key one. And in relation to this, it's not only about Tobias showed the plots earlier where we can sort of see the limits and everything, and we need to ensure that our processes are within those limits. But also through using the alarm system, we can have a escalation of these different issues. So you're getting an email sent to the one who's owning the process, for example. So you have a lot of opportunities there in tuning the system in accordance with your SOPs or your sort of controlling environment. The last item on this slide is the ease of access to data and models and results, because that is really the true benefit here, or one of the big benefits, because if you have all of the data in the same database in a structured manner, that means that the time you need in order to pull together data is really minimized. And that means that if you're ending up in a situation where you need to do a failure investigation, because those situations occur, and then you need to pull in the data and you need to review the data and see what has actually happened. With all of the data in the database or in a sort of structured manner, you can pull out those data in minutes, and you don't have to trawl through the different databases or spreadsheets and collect the data and structure the data before you can actually do the troubleshooting. And this allows you then to be much more efficient in that failure investigation process. And also, of course, easy access to results. That includes reporting opportunities, because if you are running a model for your process as sort of a control activity, then you need to ensure that you are getting reports documenting this. And then, of course, with the reports in a system like this, you can choose whether you want to have a generation of the report and print out to complete the batch documentation, or whether you will just want to store that report or come back to the data later and generate the report. But all of this is, since it is in a database, the data and the models and the results, all of this is really easy to do. Now, if we think, looking back to this circle which Tobias introduced earlier, what we're talking about here is that we are looking on a circle of continuous improvement, really, because we are starting from having some data available upper right. Then we are developing some model or relation for those data describing our process. We are bringing that model into our process, connecting to the data sources and collect the data. And as we are getting the data, we can execute the model, and then we can present the results to the end user, to the operator, or we can store those data and results in our database and later come back and generate the reports. But anyway, as we've been looping through there, we have gathered more data, and that means that we can go back and refine our models. Maybe we have an improved understanding of the process, and we can loop through and do that continuous improvement process. And this, for those of you who are familiar with Six Sigma initiatives or lean manufacturing principles, this thinking that you're actually using the data to improve your process is really underpinning that as well. So this is not very different from others. But what we are trying to do in Carmo is that we're trying to think about this continuous improvement cycle, and we are trying to provide you with the tools to actually make it happen. So we have, as of last year, we have made a collaboration with Statis. So Design Expert is part of our Unscrambler software. So if you purchase the Unscrambler, you will get Design Expert as our experimental design module. And using Design Expert, you can plan your experiments to sort of ensure that you're running a DOE, doing an efficient sampling, having an efficient sampling strategy. And you can then analyze the data in the Unscrambler. And from the analysis in the Unscrambler, you will develop some understanding or some description of your process. And what we call that description is a model. And that model is describing what's going on in the process, how changes in the parameters for the process are influencing the quality parameters of the process or the output in the process. And with that description or the model, we can bring that into process pulse. And using process pulse then, we log data as they become available during real-time execution. And we are running the data through the model and generating results. And at the same time, we are storing the results and the data in the database and making it available for either being presented in, as Tobias said, in a web dashboard, if you want to bring it out in the process on tablets or mobile phones or something like that, or it can be presented in a desktop client. Anyway, those data are available as you are running the process, or you can access it later from the database itself. And with the data in the database, of course, you can create the reports, or you can go back to extract it into a scrambler for modification of your model and continue this sort of continuous improvement loop. And this is really what it's all about, because it is about, we call it data-driven manufacturing, that you're trying to monitor what is going on in your process. You're trying to understand, okay, what does these changes, how does any changes influence my outcome of the process? And as you are doing this in a systematic manner, you should be able to reduce the variability in your process, which is exactly what you're trying to set out in Six Sigma strategies, for example. The main difference here compared to Six Sigma and lean manufacturing is that we are very keen on multivariate models, because if you have data sources like spectral data instruments, then you can't get away with just doing descriptive statistics. Then you need a multivariate modeling. And also, if you want to have a true picture of what is going on in your process, you can't only monitor your temperature. You need to include maybe the pH, maybe the pressure, stirring rate, whatever it is. But you need to have a better description of your process than just the one parameter. So that is why it's so important to do multivariate modeling. But if you now try to summarize, try to come to some conclusion and give you some advice here, because we think that there are three sort of main stages in this journey, if you like, from thinking about putting a process monitoring solution in place to actually have it in place. The first thing is, of course, all about project initiation, or to start the whole thing. And there are different starting points there, because it depends really on how mature or how far you have reached, how much thinking you have been doing in advance. For some of our customers, the first step is really to get the pilot run, have some showcase studies, and that means just to get process pulse installed in maybe a pilot plant, maybe in an example process. But also, of course, as you saw from Tobias' slide, that was a journey starting from actually defining the requirements and going through specifications as well. Thanks to Tobias and his team, that is a journey which most of you won't need to take, because we now have a solution which is ticking a lot of the boxes. When you have sort of a starting point for a pilot, of course, then you need to substantiate your business case, because hopefully this pilot or the showcase study will give you some verification that your challenge is suitable for this type of process monitoring. And then you can start to think about really realizing the project, and you can start to think about objectives. Maybe there are some customizations you need, which will require some adjustments in the process pulse, and also you can start to think about the size of the project. These three items, objectives, customization, and size of project, they will have a timeline connected to them, of course. And I would say that the timeline really depends on the complexity of your challenge. It doesn't have to take long, but it is obviously depending on the complexity. If you think about what resources are required to get you started, of course you need some sort of project team with some sponsors. And then you have to think about whether it's whether you need adaptation or whether you can use the off-the-shelf solution. If you can use the off-the-shelf solution, then it's just to get it and install it, and you're ready to run. But of course, before you can use it in your sort of operations or in your true production area, you need to think about how do you use the information you're getting Do you need to have some change in your control strategies, or do you need to do training of your operators and so forth? But I think that again, that this is relating very much to the complexity of your challenge. But in short, this is technically to get the system in place and get it connected to your sensors and then to start collecting data. I think that is fairly easy to do. But then of course all of this supporting functions and so forth, that is something which might be a bit more challenging. And maybe as we move to the last slide, I don't know whether you want to expand on this, Tobias, if you have any views.
No, it's fine. You explained quite a good, a good scenario.
Marie, you will monitor or fix the questions.
Right. So thank you so much, Tobias and Rune. We also promised when we announced this webinar that we would give you some hands-on advice, and I think we've partially done that. But some of the things here that I'm sure people are thinking about might be around the risks. You know, when you set out to do this kind of project, what are the risks that you were considering, Dr. Tobias Merz? If you would want to talk about your experience when you set up this journey and started it.
Yeah, the risk is always to fail. So it means I would to fail to integrate such a system, or there's so many roadblocks on the journey. So I think more, what are the challenges from the starting point to the implementation? It's, I think, the main important things is you have to find a champion, at least in the management, who say this is a good thing and supports you directly. And then I think it is also a door opener for the next people getting convinced, and then it's the founding. It's much easier if you have some people they think that this is a valuable tool. So this, I think, it is one point. It's really not the risk, but the biggest the challenge. I think the next one which comes in mind is the scope definition. So it means you have seen a lot of applications, and maybe you have some other applications in mind to address the application and to find the right pilot case where you can demonstrate the applications, the functions where you think it's for you the most beneficial things. Because we in Lonza we thought big, so it means we introduced Process Pulse as a corporate system, but starting small. So at least we just started in one single lab and demonstrate from there the valuable tool and the application, and then it grows along. Does it answer the question?
It does, thank you, and it really leads me into the next question here, which are, what kind of selling points were you using to get that executive management to buy in and to get that champion on board? What were the points that you were using primarily?
Yeah, you have to fit for each management individual selling points. So it's not you can claim that you are better, faster, and cheaper in the process development, but this is just an interest for maybe R&D section. And the next management coming from the production, he is not interesting in speeding up process development, but interesting in detecting the process variability much faster than nowadays by just single variable tracking. So it is a client you have to find for each person you would like to convince the right selling point. So it means from the QA perspective, it's for us it was quite this data integrity topic as a selling point or compliance. And for other, it was increasing efficiency or effectiveness.
Yeah, that's really a good insight, and I think that's probably true for everyone, that you need to find those different arguments depending on who the audience is. But obviously, having that kind of ambition with a bigger picture and having this bigger solution and vision of a desired state, that is obviously powerful in itself. But I wanted to ask Rune about the timelines. You did touch very briefly on what kind of timelines you would need to consider for Lonza. Obviously, you spent quite a few years to get to this desired state, but as mentioned, we now have better options for current tech customers. So would you just want to talk a little bit about the timelines?
Yes, I can try to do that, because I believe, and Tobias, you have to jump in here if I'm saying something wrong, but I believe that the slide Tobias showed, we started from 2009 up until today. It includes also the sort of prep work which was done in Lonza. And in addition to that, during that period, we've had some development work which has been aligned to specifications provided by Lonza. So that journey, which lasted, I believe, 6-7 years for Lonza, that has been shortened a lot now, because what we have is the Prosopulse as an off-the-shelf product, which means that if you want to run a pilot, just test out some process somewhere in your organization, we can actually do that on a very short notice. It's just to get things installed and connected, and then you are ready to go. And if we think about the requirements there, then you will need some computers, of course. You will need a server and a client, and then they have some certain levels of specification, of course. But with that computer, and given that your data sources are some of the data sources we are already supporting in Prosopulse, with the computer in place and doing the installation of Prosopulse and connecting to data sources, you can probably have that up and running in the matter of a couple of days. And then, of course, it's the challenge about starting to collect data and trying to make sense out of the data you get. If you have already been doing some modeling and you have some models ready, then again, you are within that same time frame, days, in order to get the models running and start to see where your process is in relation to that. If you need to first gather data and then develop some models, of course, then it depends on how quickly your data are generated, how much data you are generating in a day or in a week or in a month. But I would say that, as I say, a day up to a couple of weeks to sort of get started. I get systems in place and start monitoring. And then, of course, you will have to decide for yourself what type of evaluation you're doing. But very often, new customers, they are considering a pilot period of, for example, 3 to 6 months, depending on availability and all of that.
I think that's really good information for anyone who's embarking on this kind of project. And another question that's come up is obviously, and I think we also touched briefly on this, but the kind of team you would need around you, and how you would staff this team. I would like to ask Dr. Merz, what's your advice to anyone who's going to build a project team to achieve this, to put a process monitoring system in place?
That's a good question. So first of all, you need somebody who is absolutely convinced that it's the right thing for your company, and to have a kind of a vision to integrate Process Pulse or such a data management tool in your company, because you need, a patient and need, I think, a long time to get all the things ready to start. And I think important is the team, because it's interdisciplinary topic. So it means you need from the IT a good support, because we set up all on virtual machines, and to manage all the different firewalls and so on you need. Then you need from the quality assurance department to think about the validation of the system. You need somebody from the operations who is driving the rollout or the application, and I think somebody who is expert, or he's familiar with all the multivariate modeling and the data output. What does it mean if you have a score value or whatever data you need to display in the operations? So it means you need quite a huge different expertise for such a project.
Thank you so much. This will be the final question for today's session. So I'm going to hand over to Tarek to wrap it up for us.
Thank you very much. Thank you to everyone who did submit a question. Unfortunately, we didn't have time for all of them, but there will be an email follow-up for everyone who hasn't had their question answered yet. So thank you very much. And that just leaves me to thank all of today's speakers for what was a great presentation. I'm sure everyone here all agrees. And of course, to thank Camo Software for sponsoring today's session. To the attendees, you will receive an email shortly telling you how you can access the on-demand version of this webinar. And you can also get that on our website, which is www.business-review-webinars.com. Once the webinar ends, a survey will appear in its place, and we would appreciate it if you could answer the questions in there for feedback. Let us know how we did today. We do also look forward to sharing further webinars with you, so if you'd like to keep an eye out on that website just mentioned, follow us on Twitter at BRWebinars for daily updates, and feel free to join our LinkedIn group as well. That's Business Review Webinars. Thank you all once again, and I hope you all have a nice day.